They told her there wasn't enough space for her at the reunion, but they had no idea they were walking straight into her building. Claire Jennings received the rejection from her cousin Lindsay on a rainy Wednesday. The venue, the Aldridge Grand in Seattle, was too elevated, too full, and frankly, Claire would understand. What Lindsay didn't know was that Claire, once a hotel housekeeper, dismissed by her powerful family, as the one who never amounted to much, now owned that very venue. In fact, she'd quietly built an entire hospitality empire under the name Jennings Holdings. Years ago, Claire left the shadow of her family's financial firm after being labeled too soft and too small-minded for boardroom politics. But she didn't retreat, she rebuilt. From changing linens in Vermont to creating a lawn house, her first boutique hotel, Claire put dignity, thoughtfulness, and people first. She didn't just open hotels, she opened safe spaces. Quietly, she expanded into 17 properties across 4 countries. So when her family booked her Cascade location for their high society gathering, Claire let them personally, approving their overpriced last-minute request. On the night of the event, she stepped onto the stage and faced the very people who had erased her. Calm, collected, and radiant, she said only one thing: "Welcome to my home." And they finally saw her, not the maid, not the dropout, but the woman who built an empire. The rain tapped gently against the glass walls of Claire Jennings's office as she reread the invitation she never opened. It was elegant, thick cardstock silver lettering, the kind reserved for senators or CEOs. The Danvers family reunion hosted at the Aldridge Grand in Seattle. But she didn't need to open it. She'd already seen the name come through her company's event portal. She had approved the booking herself at a premium. What her family didn't know was that Claire Jennings, once the black sheep of the Danvers clan, now owned the hotel they had chosen to host their exclusive, invite-only gathering. Claire's journey didn't start in luxury. Years ago, while the rest of her family celebrated college acceptances and job offers at Caldwell, financial Claire was folding towels and changing linens in a small, creaky Vermont inn. After walking away from the cold, power-hungry world of family finance, Claire took what little she had, a duffel bag, a notebook, and a vision, and started fresh. She didn't build a brand to impress anyone. She built it to serve people with dignity, because she knew what it felt like to be invisible. From those humble beginnings, Claire created something revolutionary: Elan Hospitality, a boutique hotel chain rooted in quiet care and thoughtful details. No grand fountains or marble lobbies, just warmth, respect, and subtle luxury. Guests came and they returned. They told their friends. Claire's chain expanded to 17 properties across 4 countries, outpacing luxury resorts that had 5 times her budget. And still, her name stayed off the letterhead. Listed under C. Jennings Holdings, her family never connected the dots. So when her cousin Lindsay texted her days after the invitation with a classic backhanded message, "Hope you understand it's really upscale this year," Claire didn't reply. She didn't need to. She just watched the reservation pass through her hands, quietly approving every detail. She upgraded the floral arrangements, approved the custom linens, and added an extra service tier, just enough to make it clear that someone was watching. She hadn't attended a family event in years. Not since the whispers started about how she'd chosen to clean toilets over taking her father's offer at the firm. Not since they left her out of photos group emails and celebrations. She wasn't angry anymore. She'd simply outgrown them. On the night of the reunion, Claire didn't walk through the grand entrance. She came in through the service hallway, past trays of champagne and carts of linen, the same path she once walked as housekeeping. She wore a simple navy dress, no jewelry, hair pinned up. She didn't need flash. the room would speak for her. At 7:15 p.m., the lights dimmed slightly. Guests stirred, pausing mid-toast. And then, on the projection screen above the grand staircase, her name appeared. Elin Cascade, founded by Claire Jennings. CEO Jennings Hospitality Group, gasps echoed. Glass slipped from hands. Claire stepped into view from the second-floor landing. "Good evening," she said. "I know most of you didn't expect to see me here tonight. That's okay. I wasn't invited after all." There were nervous chuckles, then silence. "But I thought someone should welcome you properly. After all, you're standing in my home." The crowd froze. Her father's expression was unreadable. Her cousin's jaw dropped. Claire spoke with calm authority. No vengeance, just clarity. She wasn't there for applause. She was there to reclaim her place. Later that night, she walked to the break room and hung something on the wall, a cracked plastic name tag from her first job. Claire, housekeeping, no plaque, no spotlight, just a quiet reminder that beginnings don't define you, what you build does. She never needed their approval. She built something bigger than their expectations. And when they finally entered her world, they did it through a door she opened, on her terms. From the moment Claire Jennings placed her cracked plastic name tag on the break room wall, it wasn't about pride, it was about roots. Years before, she became the CEO of one of the Pacific Northwest's most respected hospitality brands. Claire scrubbed floors, changed linens, and quietly studied every interaction inside a rundown Vermont inn. The name tag, once a source of mockery among her own family, became a symbol of resilience. It reminded her where she began and why she built Elin Hospitality, not out of revenge, but from a desire to create a place where no one felt invisible. The journey was long and unglamorous. After leaving the corporate path her family laid out for her, complete with an office at Caldwell Financial, and her name on the door, Claire struck out alone. Not because she wasn't good enough, but because she asked the wrong questions. Questions about janitorial outsourcing, staff pensions, and missing ethics. Her father told her she had no vision. In truth, she had too much. Starting with nothing but a notebook and a spare room in a farmhouse inn, Claire began observing, experimenting, and rebuilding what hospitality meant. It wasn't about luxury amenities or marble floors. It was about how a guest felt when they entered the room. Elin wasn't born from capital. It was born from care. Over time, her methods attracted attention. Guests returned, word spread, investors followed. From that quiet corner of Vermont, Claire expanded to Elin Ridge, Elin Harbor, and eventually Elin Cascade, the very hotel her family unknowingly booked for their high-profile reunion. What they didn't know, what they never even bothered to ask, was that the cousin they uninvited, the one they mocked for working housekeeping, owned the building they were now admiring. Claire had deliberately kept her name off the books, letting the myth of Mr. Jennings grow in silence. She wasn't hiding, she was building. And then came the moment of reckoning. At 7:15 p.m., the lights dimmed, and the welcome presentation began standard protocol, except this time the founder's name flashed across the screen, Claire Jennings, CEO, Jennings Hospitality Group. Gasps, confusion, and a single shattered champagne flute followed. From the balcony, Claire stepped forward in navy calm and poised. "I know most of you didn't expect to see me tonight," she said. "That's okay. I wasn't invited." She paused, her voice unwavering. "But I thought someone should welcome you properly to my hotel." For years, her family had erased her, skipped her name in group messages, called her the girl who cleans toilets, but they'd walked straight into her world, under her roof, in her space, with her name at the foundation. She didn't berate or boast. She simply stated the truth. that while they laughed at her absence, she had built something they couldn't even recognize. And now, without realizing it, they had become guests in the house she built with her own hands. Her father couldn't speak. Her cousin Lindsay turned pale, but Aunt Janine, who once whispered, "You don't have to turn out like the rest of them," left something behind that night, an old photo of Claire as a child, lemonade pitcher in hand, her father's hand resting gently on her shoulder. A subtle, almost silent apology. The next morning, Claire returned to the service floor, not as a housekeeper, but as the woman who'd once been one and never forgot. She entered the break room, hung her old name tag on the coat rack wall, not to be seen, but to remember. Elan wasn't built for revenge. It was built for every person who was ever told they were too small to matter. And that night, Claire reminded everyone that real success isn't measured by who notices you at the table, but by the table you build yourself. At the heart of Claire Jennings' empire stood a simple message: you're here now, you can rest. It was handwritten on every nightstand, in every room across her hospitality brand, Elan. But those words weren't just for guests, they were for the young woman. She used to be the one scrubbing bathroom floors while her family dined without her, convinced she had failed. Years before Claire became CEO of Jennings Hospitality Group, she was uninvited from her family's reunion for being too poor. That slight didn't break her. It quietly sparked a transformation they never saw coming. Her cousin Lindsay, the self-appointed family organizer, had texted Claire just after sending the formal invitation venues at capacity. Lots of out-of-towners. Hope you understand. That emoji stung worse than an outright insult. It was fake kindness, a sanitized rejection. But what no one in the family realized was that the venue, Elan Cascade, belonged to Claire. The signature on the contract hers. The 25% rush surcharge she approved, also hers. She owned the building, the brand, and the moment. Claire never planned her life around proving anyone wrong. After leaving the corporate life her father had mapped out for her, she chose a quieter path, working housekeeping at a tiny Vermont inn, far from the glare of judgment. It was there she noticed the small things, what made guests return, what made a room feel like home. With no capital, just vision and grit, she turned that inn into Elan House, the first of many. In 4 years, she built Elan Ridge, then Elan Harbor, and eventually Elan Cascade, each one run with dignity, heart, and a deep understanding of what it feels like to be overlooked. So when the Danvers family booked Elan Cascade for their elegant reunion, Claire didn't cancel the reservation. She elevated it. She approved the linens, doubled the staff, and arranged the flowers her cousin Lindsay had requested. She made everything perfect because that was the brand. Quiet luxury, unspoken strength. But she made one small change. Instead of the usual printed welcome card signed by the Danvers family, this one read, "We hope your stay reminds you where you come from and what was never truly lost. MRJ." She didn't need to sign it fully. Her initials were enough. When the guests arrived in glittering waves, no one noticed the woman watching from a service hallway monitor. No one asked where Claire was because to them she had long since vanished. But at 7:15 sharp the lights dimmed and a presentation began. The screen lit up with soft navy and white text, Elan Cascade, founded by Claire Renee Jennings, Chief Executive Officer, Jennings Hospitality Group. Gasps followed. Lindsay dropped her champagne. Claire's father stared in stunned silence. Then, stepping onto the landing above the ballroom, Claire introduced herself, not as a cousin or a housekeeper, but as the woman who built the space they now occupied. Calm and steady, she told them, "You're standing in my home." Her voice didn't shake. She didn't gloat. She simply reclaimed what they had tried to erase. Each guest received a sleek black folder, a copy of the event contract, their invoice, and a short message. Claire didn't need applause. She just wanted to be seen, not for revenge, but for closure. Later that night, Aunt Janine slipped Claire a photo from decades ago. Claire, no older than 8, stood on a porch, holding a lemonade pitcher, her father's hand on her shoulder. On the back, Janine had written, "You were part of us." The next morning, Claire returned to the break room and quietly hung her old name tag, Claire Housekeeping, above the coat rack. No spotlight, just truth. Because for Claire, success didn't come from being invited back into the family. It came from building something so unshakable, so undeniably her own, that no one could ever erase her again. When Claire Jennings was told she couldn't come to the family reunion because there wasn't enough space, a decision sealed with a passive-aggressive emoji, she didn't argue, she didn't cry, she didn't plead for inclusion. What her family didn't realize was that the hotel they had proudly booked for their grand black tie gathering was one of Claire's own properties. Not just managed by her, owned by her. It wasn't always like that. Years earlier, Claire had been written off by the very people now sipping champagne in her lobby. When she walked away from the high-powered path her father laid out for her, at Jennings Financial, they called her reckless. When she scrubbed floors at a roadside inn and studied guest behavior from behind a linen cart, they said she had wasted her education. They never asked what she was building. They never thought to ask why she walked away. They just assumed she failed. Claire's journey didn't begin with revenge. It began with silence, with a small notebook filled with observations on hospitality, with questions like, why do some people feel at home in a room they've never seen before? With a desire to create comfort, without pretense to give dignity where it was often overlooked. Her first property, Elin House, was small, just 8 rooms, but she treated every guest like they mattered, and they did. Word spread. Slowly, steadily, she built more Elin Ridge, Elin Harbor, Elan Cascade. By the time the reunion rolled around, Claire had become a silent force in boutique hospitality. Her name was absent from press releases, her signature buried behind corporate holdings. That was intentional. She didn't build her empire to prove a point. She built it to last. But that evening, when her cousin Lindsay beamed about securing such a prestigious venue, bragging about the family name pulling strings, Claire decided to let them walk right into the truth. At precisely 7:15, the lights dimmed. The screen lit up with soft navy and white text, Elan Cascade. Founded by Claire Renee Jennings, CEO, Jennings Hospitality Group. The room went quiet. The champagne flute stopped clinking. And then Claire stepped onto the landing above the ballroom, dressed simply elegantly, like the professional they'd all ignored. "Good evening," she said calmly. "I know most of you weren't expecting me tonight. After all, I wasn't invited. But it felt right that someone welcomed you properly to Elan Cascade." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Her father's jaw tightened. Lindsay's eyes went wide. "You booked this venue through our corporate concierge?" Claire continued. "You told our staff the owner would be honored to host the Danvers family. And you were right. I approved everything personally, including the 20% surcharge." She didn't speak with anger. She spoke with power. Claire handed each guest a sleek black folder. Inside the full booking invoice and a short note. Sometimes the story you tried to erase still finds its way to the wall near the back. CRJ. Later that night, her Aunt Janine found Claire in her office and gave her a photo from decades ago, Claire 8 years old, holding lemonade on the family porch. On the back, Janine had written, "You were part of us." Claire didn't say anything. She just held the picture for a long moment. The next morning, before meetings and staff briefings, she walked down to the service floor and hung her old housekeeping name tag in the break room. No plaque, no frame, just wood, a nail, and a memory. Because Claire didn't rise to shame her family. She rose so no one could ever question her worth again. She didn't build Elon for recognition. She built it to give people, especially the overlooked, a place to belong. And when she walked through her own back halls in heels instead of sneakers, she wasn't seeking revenge. She was walking in power, quiet, unshakable, fully hers. On the evening her family gathered under chandeliers and crystal stemware at Elin Cascade, Samantha Caldwell stood unseen behind the service corridor doors. Her name wasn't on the guest list, not because she forgot to RSVP, but because they never intended to invite her. Venues at full capacity, her cousin Lily had texted. It's a black tie event, very elevated. Hope that's okay. That little smiley face wasn't just punctuation. It was permission to exclude her masked in politeness. What Lily didn't know was that Samantha had approved the contract herself. Ellen Cascade was part of the boutique hotel empire Samantha had quietly built over the last decade. The family thought she had disappeared after she left the family's financial firm. In truth, she had redefined success entirely on her own terms. They believed she worked odd jobs, floated from project to project, and couldn't hold a real position. No one asked what she was doing after she walked away from the pre-paved path her father had laid out. No one followed her to Vermont, where she rebuilt her life, from the ground up first, as a housekeeper in a creaky old inn, then as an owner-designer, and finally CEO of a hospitality brand known for its warmth, elegance, and soul. That night, while her family mingled and marveled at the elevated atmosphere of Elan Cascade, Samantha gave the quiet signal for the lights to dim. A soft chime echoed through the ballroom. Then the screen flickered on Elan Cascade, founded by Samantha Renee Caldwell, Chief Executive Officer, Caldwell Group. Gasps followed. Lily dropped her champagne glass. Her father's face turned to stone. Samantha emerged from the landing above them, poised, confident, dressed in navy. "Good evening," she said. "I know most of you weren't expecting me. I wasn't invited after all." The silence was thick, but I wanted to personally welcome you to my home. She told the room what they never cared to ask, how she'd spent years cleaning guest rooms, rebuilding tired spaces, learning the art of true service, how she'd opened one inn, then two, then 17, how she'd offered opportunity and dignity to former housekeepers, giving them leadership roles and real wages because she knew the weight of being invisible. She handed each guest a sleek black folder. Inside, the full event invoice, signed by her, and a handwritten note. Sometimes the story you tried to erase still finds its way to the front of the room. SRC. No raised voice, no confrontation, just truth quietly returned with interest. Later, Samantha found herself holding a photograph her Aunt Janine had slipped to her. In it, she was just a girl, 8 years old, holding a lemonade pitcher on the family's old porch. On the back, Janine had written, "You were always one of us." It didn't undo the past, but it softened the edges of it. The next morning before her meetings, she visited the break room where the housekeeping team gathered. There, on a hook above the coat rack, she hung her old plastic name tag, Samantha, Housekeeping, Cascade Inn. No frame, no spotlight, just a reminder of where it began. Samantha didn't build Elon to show up her family. She built it so no one else would have to prove their worth to people who couldn't see it. And when the next reunion invitation went out, it bore her name on the return address. Because some homes aren't built with brick and beams. They're built with resilience, earned humility, and a name you no longer need to defend. When Samantha Caldwell stood above the ballroom of Elin Cascade, watching the family that once laughed at her walk unknowingly into her building, She didn't feel rage, she felt closure. Years ago, they uninvited her from their lives, labeling her too poor, too strange, too lost. What they didn't know was that while they were mocking her housekeeping job, she was quietly building a hospitality empire, one handwritten thank you card, one repainted guest room, one act of service at a time. Her cousin Lily had bragged about pulling strings to book such a prestigious venue, not realizing Samantha herself signed the approval. The moment the screen lit up with Samantha's name, the room turned cold with shock. Calm and composed, Samantha stepped out and greeted them not as an outcast, but as the owner. She gave them their receipts, not just in paper, but in truth. There will be moments in life when people overlook your value simply because they can't see your vision. But their disbelief is not your truth. Keep building. Keep showing up for yourself. Like Samantha, you may one day walk into the room they tried to keep you out of and realize you own it. What have you built while others doubted you? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters more than you know. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. Let's grow a community where resilience is celebrated and quiet strength is seen.